Okay, good evening. Welcome to this regular scheduled business meeting of the Summersville City Council on this 9th day of June 2025. I'd like to welcome all of our guests tonight and get right into tonight's agenda, which the first item is consideration of the council minutes of the meeting we held on May 12th of 2025.
Move to approve and waive the reading. Second.
Okay, council, we have a first and a second. The motion was to waive the reading. Are there any changes or amendments to those minutes as they were presented in your packet? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion so carries. The next item on the agenda is public comment. I understand we do have a public comment tonight. Josie, if you'd like to come to the podium and introduce yourself.
Hello. My name is Josie Moore. I'm with the New River Gorge Regional Development Authority. I was hired in February to be their Policy and Government Outreach Coordinator, which is just like a really long fancy title of saying that I go to all the county commission meetings, city council meetings. I listen, I read the ordinances. I also sit through the legislative sessions and read all the long, complicated bills. And I was kind of hired to just be a resource to you guys locally, to kind of listen and learn and see what kind of things we can maybe push in Charleston that will help you guys out locally. Obviously we cover, 4 counties in the Southern West Virginia region, so you guys obviously have a lot of the same issues, but you're also unique. So my job is just kind of like help where I can, what policies we can push, and, just listen and things like that. So I think the mayor has my email address that he can hopefully provide, or I can find a way to get in contact with you, and I can provide my number as well. So,
Okay, Josie.
okay.
Thank you. Josie actually chairs the legislative committee for NRGRDA, and I happen to be on that committee, so I've worked already with Josie. It's been welcoming. Thank you, Josie.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the 23-24 fiscal year audit presentation by our auditor, Mr. David Howe. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me here today, and I apologize for the last meeting. I got mixed up. Aaron, I did confirm that with Aaron, and I forgot to write it down on my calendar, so I apologize.
So you are taking the blame then. So the whipping I gave Aaron for you not being here, I've got to apologize.
Yeah, it was my fault. It was my fault.
I understand, no problem.
And I apologize to you as well, Aaron. I want to thank you again for the opportunity to audit the city of Summersville, and again, I work for you, your body, the council and mayor, recorder, and we really appreciate your trust in us to perform your audit each year. Now, what we did was a financial statement audit. We didn't do a forensic audit, and the mayor every year I talk about this. The financial statement audit is not designed specifically to catch fraud. If you believe fraud is occurring in your city, the type of audit that you need to have done is called a forensic audit. And the procedures that's done in a forensic audit are different than in a financial statement audit. Financial statement audit is geared to make sure that the numbers and presentation in the financial statements are correct, where a forensic audit is to look to see if somebody's stealing or misappropriating money. So that's the difference. Just wanted to let you know. So if you have a copy, did everybody get a copy of the financial statement this year?
I had it last week, and it's sitting on my desk, but I've thoroughly went through it. If you'll just highlight the management
Okay.
and the key pieces of it. Obviously, it was a
And we all got
a good audit.
Yeah.
So if you just highlight it for the citizenry that watch this in the newspaper, I would appreciate it.
Okay, yes, every time I present, I want to make sure that council and mayor and recorder get a copy of our audit. So some people take what we send them and they put them in a drawer, and they hide it from council and mayors and recorders, and that's not good. So that's why I ask every year if you got a copy. On page 2, Mayor, the basis of, or the second paragraph, it says, in our opinion, The financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, the business type activities in each major fund of the city as of June 30, 24, and respective change in financial position and where applicable cash flows thereof for the year then ended, in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. That means that the opinion that we give on these financial statements are the best opinion that we can give. That means there are no material misstatements, no material errors in this document that we know about. There aren't any. So, again, it goes to the outstanding efforts of your accounting staff, the Director Cookie at the time. I think Aaron came in. What was your start date?
I started in January
January 20.
of this year.
That's 25, yeah. So, there was no surprise to us that things were in good order. Page it would be page 59. On page 59, you'll find our second report. And this is the report on internal controls and compliance of the city. The very last paragraph of that report says, our consideration of internal control was for limited purposes described in the first paragraph of this section and was not designed to identify all deficiencies in internal control that might be material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. Given these limitations during our audit, we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that we consider to be material weaknesses. However, material weaknesses or significant deficiencies may exist that were not identified. And what that means is we were not engaged to do a complete, thorough examination of all of your internal control systems. The parts of what we look at is we use to plan our audit. Like we look at cash receipts, we look at cash disbursements, we look at payroll, and there may be other areas of internal control that we didn't look at. And so I can't think off the top of my head what significant internal control area we didn't look at. I think we pretty much hit them all, didn't we? So, but what we did see of the internal control, there was no material weaknesses in it. I think a couple of years ago we had a small issue, material weakness, and those were corrected. It had to do with segregation of duties on the benefits account, and that was taken care of. So, the third and last matter is on compliance. The last paragraph of that, the last line of that paragraph says that the results of our tests disclose no instances of non-compliance or other matters that are required to be reported in our governmental auditing standards. That means that if you had had a non-compliance with law, regulation, contract, agreement, or grant that would have affected the financial statements in a material way, say for example you didn't pay payroll taxes for a whole year, theoretically, that would be a significant liability to the city and would affect the financial statements. So we didn't come across any kind of non-compliance that was material to the financial statements. So you guys, the city is doing a really great job, as usual. So that concludes my report, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Take
Council, you have any
questions.
questions?
Thank you.
Okay, David, did we get a 2-year contract this time, or do we have to redo the contract again?
Do y'all remember we have 25?
I believe.
We do. Yeah, I was thinking, we have one more year.
One more year,
I believe,
okay.
Mayor.
Okay, good deal, good deal. Okay, well, thank you. Appreciate you coming up tonight.
No problem. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Have a good evening. Thanks so much. Okay, the next item on the agenda, council, is approval of representation agreement for PF AS litigation. And before I bring Stephanie Daly from Goodwin and Goodwin forward, I'd like to kind of explain to you some other matters legally that are transpiring. We're in the thick of many hydro issues, and I reached out to our local council, who I told them that basically before we had always sought somebody more specialized for hydro issues. They concurred. I worked through the West Virginia Municipal League with Mark Makovic, who Mark did us a very good job before he went full-time with the Municipal League in getting us ready for home rule. Of course, his expertise being in charge of the state tax department and then working cities through the home rule program. I reached out to Mark, actually even shared with Mark in some detail what I was looking for legally. And then, of course, Mark referred me to Goodwin and Goodwin, who has much experience in renewable energy. And so I've been working with Laura Goins and Brock Stouts, more Laura than Brock. Brock's just kind of the background guy with Laura. Most of our meetings have been with Laura, but we're in the thick of it because as Jim and Ann are in the process of selling NOAA assets, the company coming in the door wanted some changes to the agreement, which is referring to the agreement and the many contractual things we have with hydro. The agreement is the relationship between NOAA and the city of Summersville. Incidentally, they came at us with some changes, but basically what it was cherry picking the agreement to benefit them. And so immediately I knew we needed to bring some counsel in for us, of which we have. We've actually gained a lot of ground and now have laying before NOAA as Goodwin and Goodwin, Laura and Brock representing us. We've got an entire rewrite of the agreement because it's kind of interesting. The agreement was put together, our relationship with NOAA, in the early 1980s. It predated GRPP, which came along, which was Catamount, who actually built it. So when you got into the thick of the agreement, there's a lot of things in the agreement that didn't even speak to reality, how we operate and function today. So we're in the midst of a complete rewrite of the agreement, which at what point in time we get it all agreed to between all the parties, then it'll have to come here, not for just approval on the agreement, but also a resolution that goes with the agreement. So anyway, that's how we got engaged with Goodwin and Goodwin. And then they also brought to my attention a situation with the PFAS, which I've done a little bit of homework on. As a matter of fact, I didn't know for sure if Stephanie was going to be here tonight. When Laura told me she couldn't make it, I failed to ask her if Stephanie's still coming. But anyway, Stephanie's here, and I'm glad because I'm going to let her speak to the contract we have before us to engage Goodwin and Goodwin in the PFAS litigation. And Stephanie, at this time, if you'd come forward.
See, Susan is my mom, so I'll
Okay.
answer. Exactly. She taught me to answer at anything in a nice tone of voice, so we'll go with that. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm glad to be here. My name is Stephanie Daly. I'm a partner at Goodwin and Goodwin, and we're glad to be here and be finding opportunities to build relationships with Summersville. So we have been involved for the last few years in representing public water systems really across West Virginia in preparing and filing claims in litigation in federal court, which are based on the presence of PFAS in source water. So PFAS is more and more in the news these days. They are forever chemicals, and what makes PFAS and the various analytes unique are that they don't biodegrade. And because they don't break down, they stay around forever. But it was those very properties that made them very useful. So 3M is one of the settlements that we will hopefully be filing a claim for you all. In this settlement, 3M has been by far the largest settlement defending manufacturing defendants settling in the litigation. The total value of their settlement is $10.5 to $12.5 billion. It's to be paid out over 10 years. But the product that they made, among many others, is the presence of the PFAS in fuel firefighting foams. The properties, they're non-soluble, and so they were used in many airports, military bases, to fight fuel fires. And so the properties made it very effective there. But unfortunately, those same properties mean that once they are out in the environment, they don't break down, and it is very, very difficult to remove them. So it's something that across the United States, really probably in most modern places in the world, it's being dealt with. These chemicals are in the source water, and so depending on so these particular settlements are with public water systems, and it's the value of based on the size of the system, the number of gallons that are processed each year through the system, and the level of PFAS detection really determines what the allocation of the claims within each settlement. So as I say, we've represented public water systems all across West Virginia, and depending on where systems are located, their neighboring systems, typically their test results are very similar because they're taking from similar source water, and those areas have had typically the same types of inputs, particularly in big systems near large airports, near large military bases tend to have some of the highest concentrations. There are parts of West Virginia that have very, very small concentrations. So within the two settlements that you all may be able to file a claim in are the 3M, which I mentioned, and the DuPont. And the reason is because those two settlements provide for phase 1 claims and phase 2 claims. So the phase 1 deadline for submission was last summer. And phase 1 systems are those who had a PFAS detection prior to the settlement date, which was in 2023. Many of the West Virginia systems who qualified as phase 1 systems had a detection when the U.S. Geological Survey went around and tested all systems about 4 to 5 years ago. And so then the results from that is publicly available, and those systems qualified to be phase 1. Summersville is a phase 2 system, and meaning that presumably when the U.S. Geological Survey would have come around and tested your source water, they would have determined there would have been no detection. So. And detections can vary, so there was no detection then, and there may be no detection now. But I think it's important to underscore that if there is this is in the source water across the United States. So if there is a detection, it's not because of anything that anyone locally has done. It's just because you're drawing from a river or from the groundwater, and wherever that is drawing from, it has picked up some PFAS. We're talking about parts per trillion, so very, very, very trace amounts. But to qualify to receive an allocation of the settlement, any detection, even a half part per trillion, which the tests are sophisticated enough to detect, would qualify. So what we would do, so if you all were on the phase 1 list, the town would be out of time. So the good news is that you all are on the phase 2 list, which means we have plenty of time to come and test the water and to build a claim, which are due in the summer of 2026. So if you wanted to proceed, we would come and get a sample, send it to the lab, which is used by within this very significantly larger federal litigation. And I would also work with the operations people to get flow rate information for the period of the look back period, which for these two settlements is from 2013 to 2022. We look at and we analyze the flow rates to identify the 3 highest years. And then we also get information, kind of how big is the motor, what is the design capacity or the maximum capacity of the apparatus that draws in the source water. So those are the 3 components that go into making a claim. So far there have been 4 settlements, 3M and the DuPont, which provide for a phase 1 and a phase 2. There have been 2 other settlements, and the claims timeframe has passed for those. They do not have a phase 2. However, from the point that we would come and get a test as soon as we could, because from the point that a system has a detection, then you would qualify for any future settlements. So the litigation is still ongoing with other defendants, and so to the extent additional settlements would come down the pike, as long as you have a pre-settlement detection of each individual settlement, then you would qualify within it. So let's see. Unless we were to draw a recovery from one of the settlements, there would be no cost to the city. We are doing these on a contingency fee basis, but we're doing these reduced. So we typically do a 40% contingency fee when we take on work in the contingency fee realm, because there's risk. If there's no recovery, then we don't take any fee. So we would do a 25% contingency, and we would also take care of all the expenses related to the testing and any claim submission expenses, recovering those only should we be in a position to file a claim and get a recovery for the city. Do you have any questions?
I do.
Okay, great.
Okay. If you read through the representation agreement, it does go on to explain that if you would decide to file an appeal, it goes from the 25 to the 40. Could you explain what might cause you to file an appeal?
Well, in this, that would come in the scenario that we filed a complaint what we are proposing, given the state of where the litigation is filing a claim within the settlements. If we got to a point where we thought that it was prudent for the city, we would file an individual complaint where we would be litigating a claim. Then, but at least for the existing settlements that we have, it's past that point. You can't file a new complaint. But if we were to do that, if we were to identify a new defendant, or who knows, I don't have my crystal ball, so I don't know what the future is, but that pertains to active litigation that we would file a complaint in. We would get some type of resolution in the trial court, and then we would need to appeal, like to the 4th Circuit. So we probably should have taken that out of the agreement. It is largely not applicable to the litigation that we're in, the resolution that we're envisioning here. Okay.
So the only other thing that I would like to do, just to make it clear, I'm glad you said PFAS, because I've been calling it PFAS. So I finally got the wording for the acronym. But the other thing that I want to be clear about is, when you go out and Google it, like everybody does, it says it's a forever chemical. But I think it's important that we communicate tonight that this is not a chemical that we're using to treat our water. This is a chemical that could be coming in as with the source water.
It is an existing environmental contaminant put
But
out there by third parties.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it goes on to say that it's a forever chemical due to the persistence in the environment and their slow breakdown in the human body. So I'm just curious, has there been claims, is there a rash of medical claims that have been related back to this?
There are some individual injury claims that have been filed, even within when you have mass torts, they typically make their way into federal court because the defendants are typically large and widespread. When you have many complaints and much litigation related to the same topic, in federal court they get consolidated for case workup purposes. It's called a multi-district litigation, or an MDL. In this case, there is an MDL for the PFAS in Charleston, South Carolina. And that permits a single judge to really gain a high degree of expertise on the matter. All of the pretrial rulings and discovery have parity, and all the cases are being treated alike. So in this regard, there are the claims by the public water systems. There are also some individual injury claims and even some other types of claims. And I'm not familiar even with all the different categories of plaintiffs who are seeking and pursuing claims within the MDL. But I do know that personal injuries are one of them. Yeah, and many of those folks, some tend to be residents in areas with particularly high concentrations of it, which I don't anticipate to be here, simply because Summersville is categorized as a phase 2 claimant. But also firefighters and some military personnel. The guys who are out there with the foams at the airports, fighting fuel fires, who had significant and high concentration exposure.
So my last question, in us being identified as a phase 2, was that merely by the volume that we have, or was that due to the preliminary testing that was done some time ago that put us in a phase 2 category?
It is based on Summersville treating raw water, having a system that treats water, you have over 3,300 population served. I think about 5,500 is the number that the EPA website has there, which is on the list. So you're large enough to kind of stay in the game. So in a 3M settlement, the really small settlements are not eligible. Small systems, very small, less than 3,300 population served, are not eligible to file a phase 2. So Summersville is on that list, not because it is necessarily anticipated that there's any concentration or a high concentration. It's just strictly there was no pre-settlement detection, which likely just because West Virginia, up until recently, it really wasn't on the radar. On the state level, the EPA is now regulating it. They have a maximum contaminant level for several of the different analytes. I don't anticipate the test result to be anywhere near there, just given the history and the area and geographically where we are. But it would not be surprising if there were some detection when we take a test. And so in many ways, it's out there. It is also with regards to potential claims. This is an opt-out settlement class action, meaning that all public water systems in the United States are included. If a system wanted to opt out, they could have, meaning but there was affirmative action that you had to take. And that was about a year and a half ago. So any claims that you may have had, and there was public notice that went out to the systems, and so, any claims that were released, claims that are addressed by the settlement have been released because Summersville did not opt out. So it's sort of you're not losing anything by pursuing it. But if there is a detection, we can put a claim together to get an allocation. I don't have any idea what that would be because it's based on the detection. First, there has to be a detection, and if there's no detection, then there's no claim. So, and that's a great answer to have.
Yeah.
Right? And so the detection is one part, the flow rates, how much water have you pushed out, and then how big is the engine? How much water is the system capable of drawing out of the source? Those three go into a very sophisticated formula, and then out comes a point value. And based on that point value, then they determine. At this point, they are determining what is the monetary value of each point. So you may start hearing the 3M's first payment for phase 1 systems has just come out, like within the last month. And so systems who filed phase 1 claims are receiving their first checks. And clients will say, well, how much did we get? And of course the response is, well, it's complicated. Because it's a 10-year payout schedule, the first payment is 20% of the anticipated total amount, and it could change going forward. One reason being is the settlement, the agreement contemplates having parity between phase 1 claimants and phase 2 claimants. So to the extent that Summersville has a claim, what the points that we are able to, that the system would be rewarded based on the inputs that we would create, would we anticipate having parity with the systems who were able to file in phase 1.
Okay.
So.
Okay, council.
Yeah, just a couple questions of clarity. So, I think it's awesome, the PFAS with the firefighter foam is a big deal. 3M is a huge defendant in a bunch of different cases. I mean, they're all over the place with being defendants, so it's awesome. But my question is, and Mary might be able to help with this. So I see having the help with that, doing the testing and make claims if needed. And I also see seeking counsel for the hydro, but I'm not seeing the correlation between the two. Because this is on our source water coming into the city.
Yeah,
with the
so actually, they just made me aware, which I was unaware. So when I engaged them on hydro, they asked me where we were with this.
This is +1.
Yeah, this is
Gotcha.
+1. Yeah,
Now,
they're
this
not
is-
related at all.
Yeah, no, this is
Totally
big,
different
exactly.
representation, not the same law firm, but different representation.
That just threw me. I just want to.
They just brought me up to speed on this, and it wasn't on my radar, and so,
Yeah, the PFAS and the firefighter claim, that's been going on for a decade now, probably with 3M.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a.
and we don't use the foam, but I can tell you in the last couple of decades, I'm aware of it being used in this area with hazmat issues. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So the work that we would do to relate it to this would, I would presume that you may have an hourly arrangement with regard to the other hydro issues. I honestly, I don't know. But the work that I do for this would be unrelated to the work that Laura and Brock would do on the
Thank
other.
you. I just want
Yes,
to.
yeah.
Thank you.
This agreement says PFAS and/or other chemicals. Could you elaborate on that? I mean, are you going to be testing, how deep are you going to be testing this water?
We are actually only going to be testing for PFAS.
So are you requesting that to be removed, Jim?
What?
do we want to remove and/or other chemicals? Will that in any way?
That was just a question I had, you know, it's just
Yeah, but that,
broad range of chemical testing, or what is it?
What we would do is come and get a sample. There is a lab that is running testing for 29 PFAS analytes. I'll come and get the sample, overnight it to California, and they'll do the testing, and that's the only testing, unless we decided to retest for some reason, and we have done that with other systems. The testing that we would do would only be for the PFAS. But if you feel comfortable.
Yeah, that's a good catch, Jim. Let's strike that, and then that way, if there's something down the road relative to other chemicals that we.
I was just wondering, just what kind of testing was gonna be done,
Yeah.
that's all.
Okay, so we'll just say contamination of drinking water with PFAS. Okay, council, it is my recommendation that we move forward with this and get this underway. So I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Okay, we got a first and a second. Any questions or further discussion? Okay, if you'll just change that in the morning and
Yeah.
ship a new one out.
Sure will.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion so carries. Thank you,
Great.
Stephanie.
I'll
Thank
get you
you.
a
Safe-
copy in the morning.
All right,
Great.
safe travels home.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along, recorder's report.
Okay, I have a couple of things, Mayor. Pass these down. Some new businesses in May, it was pretty busy. Pass those down, let y'all see what those were. Secondly, next planning and zoning meeting will be June 30th at 6 PM, right here in the channel.
What day, Gary?
6:30, it's a Monday. June 30th.
Okay, when is that, Gary?
June 30th, 6 PM. All right, that's all I have there.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, next is mayor's report. Council, I have a few things I would like to share with you. First, I'll tell you that we went through the ISO review. It was actually held on 5/20 of May 20th. I'm extremely proud of the Summersville Fire Department chief and the organization. I mean, he put an entire binder together, and it was an awesome deal. I mean, to sit there with the folks evaluating us from ISO, and they were just totally impressed. I mean, Aaron had spent the time and put a 3-inch binder together, and it was not Aaron, Evan. Evan Aldridge had put this binder together, and it thoroughly went through from A to Z everything that they needed to see and do. There are some things that we're going to maybe try to still do prior to the decision being made in July as to what our new rating is, and we're currently working on those. But overall, it was a great review. I also, Jeremy Nicholas also attended the new GM of utilities, and we're all hopeful for an upgrade in our rating, but Jeremy's representation of the utilities and our water and fire hydrants, and then of course Evans on the fire department, it was an overall very impressive meeting, as they were impressed as well. The charging station, of course, we have the charging station chairwoman here. And I know she's happy to report it's up and running. We had 28 charges in the month of May. The only thing I would like to say about the charging station is we did have some controversial stuff hit social media about the city of Summersville being a city of getting ready for a city of the 22nd century, You know, it's amazing to me that, you know, collectively as a team, we work every day to make sure we're ready for tomorrow. Electric vehicles are American-made, they're made in this country, and let me tell you, I got emails monthly from people that travel through here, or even people that work in this community that were begging for a charging station. So it's up and running, and you know, for the naysayers, that was an incredible partnership through the University of Tennessee Tech, who actually paid for the charging station through a grant they got to come and make an impact on electric charging stations in rural communities. We were excited to be one in the great state, or one of 3 in the great state of West Virginia to be selected in that partnership. And so, you know, we, like I said, we had 28 charges in May.
It was only for 2 weeks.
Or for 2 weeks. That was 2 weeks, and quite frankly, it wasn't even marketed yet because we were still waiting for some final stuff to happen that has now happened. And so even the marketing component that came with the partnership we did is going to be up and running, and I have a feeling that it's going to be wide open from a standpoint of charging. And by the way, it is a charging station that will charge any electric vehicle. You know, you get in that business and you find out there's some charging stations that only do certain vehicles. Ours will do any vehicle any manufactured electric vehicle, that charging station will charge. Want to highlight Music at the Pavilion. We kicked it off last week. Didn't know whether we were going to be able to kick it off, but it was a great night with the kids. It's every Friday night going forward now, except for 4th of July and Fair Week. 6:30 to 8:30. We invite the community to come out. It's not only about the entertainment and the fellowship, but Mary Ann has got somebody set up every week that will bring refreshments to accompany the event. And then, of course, this summer we've got various groups that are actually going to attend Music at the Pavilion. So I just want to put it out there, a big plug for it. I want to thank Mike Gregory, our entertainment agent. He's done a swell job of bringing some back this year, but we've also got some new in the lineup. So don't forget about Music at the Pavilion downtown Summersville, Friday nights, 6:30 to 8:30. Summersville Public Library, I've got to give them a plug. They do a lot of wonderful things. It is our city public library, and I'd just like to highlight, I mean, they send me every month to put out on Eye on Summersville what they do, and literally I could do a show just with the library, so I have to choose and pick. But what I do want to do, knowing the importance of kids being able to read, they've got a summer reading program. Pre-K through kindergarten is every Tuesday, 10 to 11. It started this week and runs through July 15th, every Tuesday. And then they've got a middle school book club that runs on Thursdays. The Tuesday program is 10 to 11 a.m. for the pre-K and kindergartners. The middle school program is on Thursdays, 3 to 4:30 p.m. And it started this week and runs through July 17th. And then, of course, they've got grades 1 through 5 that meet on Wednesdays, 3 to 4:30. And it starts this week and runs through July 18th. So parents, if you're out there and you want to encourage your kids to do something great over the summer, take them to the public library for the reading clubs. That's an awesome good thing for the youth. The other thing I want to highlight is at the Summersville Arena and Conference Center, we've got our summer craft show and yard sale. I want to give a plug for the yard sale piece because we're always asked, people want to rent the pavilion for yard sales, and we do not permit that because obviously you could imagine we would have yard sales out there all the time. But anybody out there that wants to have a yard sale and don't think they have the best location, be it in the city or out of the city, on Friday, June 27th and Saturday, June 28th, there's a craft show and yard sale going to take place at the Summersville Arena and Conference Center. It's obviously hosted by the Conference Center. It's free admission, so if you want to do some shopping that day, please, or those days, June 27th and 28th, please go. But furthermore, Gonna have activities for the kids and concessions and the whole 9 yards, but more important, if you're out there and you want a space in the yard sale, I encourage you to contact the conference center at 872-3722 and get you a spot. As I checked with Rebecca this week, they've got some spots left, plenty of spots. So if you're looking to have a yard sale and want to have it at the conference center, please give them a call. Let's see. Okay, the last thing I wanted to do, and this really turned out to be a pretty incredible event. It was, I call it an international event because that's really what it was. We hosted a large group of individuals that happened to be from Poland. Actually had a delegation of folks come from Poland for this event that brought information and directly from the president of Poland. They made some presentations to me, which I was really proud to. I said, I've been mayor for a long time, and I've never stood on a stage representing 2 countries, and now I can say I've done that, because literally it was about Poland and America. And of course, Poland is an ally of our country, and this whole conference, which was a very huge success, this year was about 50 to 60 people. They had such a great time here. They're booking one for next year, and they're going to say that numbers will hit about 150. And what this all speaks to is the history, the incredible historical value of Poland going from communism to a democracy, and the people that live in this country that were actually ousted in the 1980s from Poland. And it's just an incredible story. People come from all over this country and Poland. But anyway, it looks like, and then ironically, some of them are even now talking about, they loved it here so much, moving here. What an incredible conference it was. But I did a proclamation for them, and I would like to read it again. I did this for the conference, and I actually presented it to them, and they were really, really proud of this. I said, whereas I, Robert L. Schaefer, Mayor of the City of Summersville, proudly representing its citizens, do hereby welcome Conference West Virginia 2025. That's what they called it. Whereas we recognize all participants and their heritage. Whereas the city supports the conference mission, giving scholars, journalists, and the public access to extraordinary people with exceptional insight. And there were some incredible people there, that were imprisoned in Poland, and then when they were let out of prison, they were exiled and had to go somewhere. And quite frankly, this group of people are really thankful for Ronald Reagan, because it was during the Reagan eras when they sought home in this country, and they just can't talk about how grateful he was to bring them to America, let them come to America, and then the expediting their visas and the things that they needed to. Now, most of them, a lot of them hold dual citizenships now that they have a democracy in Poland, but just incredible stories. Whereas we support the democracy of all countries for a free people. So therefore, let it be proclaimed that June 4th through June 6th, the City of Summersville salutes the Conference West Virginia 2025. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Summersville to be affixed to this proclamation, as we proudly celebrate and honor the historical value of America's ally, Poland, and its people. And I got to tell you, it was just a really super uplifting conference in opening our doors to another country. And let me tell you, they had nothing good to say about their entire welcome from everywhere they went and everywhere they visited here in Summersville and the area. And they even ventured down to Fayette County to the national park. Just really had a great stay. It was a great conference. And I guess the exciting piece for us is they're going to come back next year and about triple the size. So it was a great delegation. And I want to thank the conference center for all the work they did. I can tell you that I went and spoke at the opening and then sat there for about a half a day through an AI translator because it was all in Polish. So, you know, I teased them a little bit because the only word that they said that I could understand was when they say America, they call it America. So when they were saying America, I could pick that up. But just great people. I mean, all of them were just incredible people. And you know, let me tell you, I slung the door open wide and said, you want to move here, you're welcome. So I just wanted to highlight that and thank the conference center for all their work and everything they did to accommodate the conference. That concludes the mayor's report, unless anybody has any questions. Okay, the next thing I would like to do is council reports. Any council comments or reports? Okay. And with that said, we don't need an executive session. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Oh, you know what? I gotta back up. I forgot something very important. Very, very important. This goes in my mayor's report. Council, I want to invite you on June 26th at 12 noon to the Renan Conference Center. If you haven't heard, Chief Jay Nowak retired or announced his retirement at our managers meeting the first of this month. And his last day of work will be June 30th. So his retirement dinner is at the conference center the 26th at 12 noon. And sure would like to see you all if you can put it in your schedules. Okay, and I'll have good comments to say about my chief of many years and his 37 plus years of service at his retirement dinner, because Jay's been here a long time. Okay, did we get a first and second? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion so carries. Council, thank you and have a good evening.